You're listening to the Dibbly Dobbly podcast. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, and click the bell to make sure you get the latest episodes of the podcast. Be sure to like and share our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and on Instagram.
This is Andrew Armitage. I am the Executive Director of Cricket Finland, originally from the UK, 36 years in Finland, running the development program for cricket in Finland. And you are listening to the Dibbly Dobbly podcast.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Dibbly Dobbly podcast. And on the podcast, we have started a new series on the podcast looking at associate nations within cricket and how they are developing the game in their country. Many of us cricket fans know so much about the established cricketing countries and not enough on the associate nations who play cricket. So it would be nice to learn more about those associate countries, and via the podcast, people can learn more as well. For today's Associate Cricket Series episode, we are discussing all things Finland cricket. Joining me to discuss and talk all things Finland cricket is the Executive Director of Cricket Finland, Andrew Armitage. Andrew, welcome.
Thanks, Jack. Pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you here, Andrew, and thank you for giving up your time today to speak to me about Finnish cricket.
Not at all.
Cricket in Finland, which is definitely a new thing for me. And what we try to do on the podcast through the Associate Cricket Series is to educate all of our listeners and viewers about these associate countries and what they're doing to grow the game and develop it, like people like yourself behind the scenes, Andrew, and many others that I've interviewed and spoken to, who do wonderful work, very enthusiastic and very passionate for the cause about developing and growing associate cricket. Sometimes it can be chaotic and you have to wear many hats, as many people have told me.
More than sometimes.
yes. Which is what you got to do with limited resources and power and manpower and volunteers, which is a big thing in associate cricket. So no doubt for me, Andrew, speaking to you, and no doubt for our listeners and watchers, they'll definitely learn something new about Finland and associating that with cricket, which is generally the thing with people when they hear about associate countries and they say they don't play cricket there. No. Well, for those saying that,
they do.
Yeah. Well, for those saying that about Finland cricket, they do play cricket in Finland. They've been playing cricket for a long time over there. So definitely, Andrew will definitely explain definitely convey that in our chat today, I should say.
Do my best.
Yeah. Well, it's all about just giving it your best shot, and hopefully people will learn a lot and take a lot out of it, and wanting to learn more about Finland cricket and watch cricket in Finland, or even go to Finland and play a game, or just experience what
I was going to say. I was going to say, why not? I mean, we still have snow here this morning on the 21st of April, so the season is due to start in early May. So yeah, that's more than welcome to come over. It's usually a much nicer summer than I ever used to have back in England back in the day. So the Finnish summer is we don't have much of a spring and an autumn normally. It's snow, and then bang, sun comes out, the grass starts to grow, and you bang into the summer within a couple of weeks.
Definitely. Well, they do play ice cricket in Switzerland.
Yeah, that's something that it's not exactly been up in the forefront of our interest, but yeah, that's very true. I think we have that such a long winter, and the lakes and the sea freezes over, so there's lots of opportunities to do so. But I think it's just so cold that not exactly something that's.
Well, maybe you have to play with snowballs and set up cricket stumps like in snow form, and then snowballs, and do that. That'll be great fun.
I think I prefer indoor cricket, to be honest.
Much
winter.
Much warmer.
Exactly.
And you can have a cup of tea after play. So
that as well if you want. Yep.
Which is the case in many European countries with the harsh winters. Indoor cricket's the way to go. So, as we will discuss in our chat as we go further and further. But before we do that, Andrew, as I do with all my guests that I've interviewed on the podcast, I like to take them back to when they first got into cricket. And it's been very fascinating listening to people's memories on how they started to get into cricket. So, Andrew, let's go back to the very beginning growing up. I know that's a long time ago. Sorry to bring that up. Time flies.
When you're having fun.
Memories of watching, playing, and even going to the cricket. And who were some of your cricketing idols that you looked up to growing up?
Originally from from Manchester, then it's obviously a very big football city. But I always had an affinity to play cricket. I think football in Manchester as a school kid was invariably played in the wet and soggy, muddy football grounds, and I think I just cricket just seemed to be more appealing to me in so many different ways. I can remember playing everywhere, from the back garden to the local park to the beach, to then eventually playing some school cricket and sort of moving on to playing club cricket and so on and so forth. So yeah, it's pretty much those types of memories. I don't recollect too many of my family. My parents weren't keen on cricket. I've got a younger brother, and he sort of tagged on playing cricket with his elder brother, so we sort of made that up ourselves. But the neighbours and in the street, we'd play football as well as cricket and anything really. And I just progressed from there. Those are my sort of first memories. Always fun memories in terms of that. It didn't have to be something that was necessarily all that difficult to learn, and no rules and everything else. Just hit the ball and run around and have fun. Which is at the end of the day then the basis of any sport or any hobby that anybody would play, I guess. So no different in that regard. And then that would sort of progress through my my formative teenage years of the early 80s, and remember watching the 81 Ashes series in particular, obviously comes to mind. Both the heading the match on the TV, as well as then going physically to Old Trafford for that Test match, and remembering Botham continuing to dominate the Aussies as he did pretty much throughout that series. And those are sort of things that's fresh in mind. But I guess those are the internationals and things like that. But I would often also go to Lancashire county matches played at Old Trafford. I can have strange things remembering things like the smell of hot dogs and doing sort of mini scorecards, not having a clue what I was doing, and just watching somebody who was actually scoring. You in those days they used to hand out paper scorecards. I just remember there would be a guy that would walk around the stands and be shouting, "Anybody scorecard? Anybody scorecard? Scorecard?" And it's like, okay, yeah, I'll have one. Fair enough. What am I supposed to do next? Clive Lloyd's batting. Oh, okay. Now we've got to tick on that box and put a 1 in there and a 2 in there. I guess it was all part of the fun just for the day. I can remember that quite numerous occasions, and of course watching all sorts of cricket being played at Old Trafford with Clive Lloyd skippering the Lancashire team. Then we had all sorts of visiting stars from the international stage, fast bowlers from his setup in West Indies, as well as the likes of Wasim Akram, Patrick Patterson. Those are ones I can remember as myself wanting to be a bowler. Nothing like what they were bowling, but and then all sorts of other superstars of cricket history in Lancashire, Neil Fairbrother's and Michael Atherton's, Bumble, David Lloyd, Graham Fowler. Oh yeah, the names are so many. Jack Simmons is another one. Yeah, I could go on and on and on of those sort of 70s and 80s. And then 88, I moved to Finland, so that was the end of that. So that's my sort of memories of my upbringing playing it. And I played pretty much until I left, which was playing senior cricket in what those days was called the Manchester Association. I think these days called the Cheshire League. I played at a club based in Sale. It was called Ashton-on-Mersey, which was basically a cricket club that had its boundary on the banks of the Mersey, obviously by the name, the River Mersey. And my uncle, rest in peace, was the one that took me up there because he played at the club, and I got involved playing with under 11s upwards, and stayed with the club all the way until I left England in 88. I remember taking an 8-for in a game and all sorts of interesting things like that. But it wasn't. It was a few levels down from obviously county cricket, but yeah, all good fun.
Yeah,
something
definitely. It's those early memories, isn't it, and recollections that you have, and how you got into the game, and just good times, really, just having fun, enjoying it, and not taking it too seriously, having fun with your mates. And
yeah,
that's the thing, really, in cricket. You can remember certain things and matches and numbers and scorecards. It must be something that us cricket tragics, Andrew, must have, that ability in our brain just to unpack those figures. And I remember that game. I remember this player, which no one has heard of ever since. Sort of one cap sort of wonders.
Yeah.
Because when I spoke to Rohan from Belgium cricket on the podcast recently, he picked out an Indian player name that I never heard of before that played in the 90s and hasn't played for India after that game that he played, or a couple of matches he played.
Yeah.
So it's things like that you can just pick out, and no one else would remember but you, because you just remember that from growing up and watching those matches.
Yeah, in many cases, some of those Lancashire matches, whether they would have been county games predominantly, I guess, the odd one-day match, what they used to call it. There was different names for the tournaments back then. In the shorter format of 60 or 50 over games and all those sorts of things, and I can remember all sorts of names that at the time, I guess, you wouldn't have known that they were going to become future international stars. In many cases, I think that was one of the beauties of being from that part of the north of England, as the Clive Lloyd sort of set up, and his involvement with Lancashire meant that it was always a very sort of a multicultural, multifaceted sort of environment that I was involved in, playing my own cricket back in club cricket, and then sort of watching some of these international superstars playing at Old Trafford was always, it was incentivizing for me to sort of think that that might be something I could aspire to at some point. Never managed it, of course, but
but it's always good to have those role models in any sport, let alone cricket. Obviously, aspire to greater things, and that's why
absolutely.
You get people involved in the game, and wanting to play at the highest level. How would you best describe yourself as a cricketer, Andrew? How would you best describe yourself?
Average to middling. I was very keen. I trained a lot. I remember in my back garden. I mean, back in the day, that would have been sort of late 70s, early 80s. I remember back in the back garden, getting the book from the library, the Dennis Lilly's the Art of Fast Bowling, and I can remember training in the back garden how to hold the seam and innies and outies and all sorts of other stuff. So I think that was probably something which, as a cricket tragic, quite rightly as you said, that probably I was never quick enough to be quick. So I was at best probably just medium quick, but I would be able to move it both ways, and that was something which at any level, if you can do it at will, it's especially if you're up somewhere in northern England with lots of damp, scoggy wickets and gripping the taking pieces out of the pitch, not all the time, but I guess that was something which I can remember sort of. I remember fine tuning it, let's put it that way, so that I could actually do it to order, which was something which got me quite a lot of wickets for a few years in my early 20s, but never being quick enough to move up to the sort of the next level, but thoroughly enjoying it. That's but back then, it would have been, there weren't so many players that would be seen as all rounders. You were either a specialist batsman or a specialist bowler, and every now and again somebody came along that could actually do both. But we used to train that much at our given role, then didn't really have much time to try batting. But how the times have changed.
Yeah, that's right. Everyone's got to bat from 1 to 11, even talented, and how important that is, as we've seen in many test matches or many games.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially in the Ashes with Pat Cummins and Nathan Lyon in that partnership at Edgbaston. They won the game. So everyone listening, focus on your batting if you're a tail ender.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's so important.
I suppose it's a relatively short period of time. I mean, saying that, I've lived in Finland for 36 years, but if you sort of roll back a little bit more than that, 30, 40 years or so, then how the whole landscape of cricket has changed. Yes. That being a prime example. Everybody has to be able to do everything.
Yes, bat, ball, and field, and keep. So you got to do
quite right too. Yeah, quite right too. I mean, that's I think from an all-rounder perspective, then obviously fielding and catching and running and everything else was quite normal for me, but the batting was never something which really anybody had time to, either you to actually have any time in the nets for the batters had obviously had their stints then first, and then the bowlers invariably were knackered by the time they got round to that. So the bowlers bowling at other bowlers didn't really happen all that much.
Yeah, that's just the way it is, isn't it?
Mm.
How times have changed. So, what made you get involved with Cricket Finland? What wanted you to get involved with the organization?
Well, moving out here in '88, there was next to no cricket in the country. There was bits and pieces of cricket. The '52 Olympics. We've done a little bit of historical studies, and there was a sort of a friendly match played just outside of the Helsinki Olympic Stadium. But nothing that actually caught on to have regular cricket. There was one cricket club that existed in Finland when I came here in the end of the '80s, and obviously there was only one, so they played amongst themselves, and most of their cricket was then played abroad. And I think a few years went by, and had a family here, and so on and so forth. But there was a realization that cricket had to become a part of my life again. I was never intended to move anywhere else. I love Finland and love living here. So it was always a case of sort of trying to, how should I say, enhance my my love for Finland by adding the love for cricket. And next thing, I'm involved in helping setting up cricket clubs in the early to mid '90s, and then had the wild idea of contacting the ICC at the time and saying, how do we take a step from here, and what do we do next to form an association, which we then did in '99. So 25 years this summer for the Finnish Cricket Association, for Cricket Finland's existence, which of course is depending how you look at it, a very, very short period of time compared to existing more established full member cricket countries. But I think it's in a way, it's often when somebody's asked me that question all over these years, then I've sort of thought, well, I probably wouldn't have been involved in cricket anymore if I'd stayed in England. I would have played on for a few more years, and then that would more than likely have been it. So having moved here and got involved in pretty much creating a system from scratch, which is what we did back then, late '90s. So yeah, it's pretty much been involved in everything that you would be, or you could imagine, for any of your viewership that's based in a traditional country. Then that's probably not something that you would think about, because we didn't have any infrastructure, we didn't have any player pathways, we didn't have any schools cricket programs, we didn't have any national sides. So you start from nothing, and that's I guess very different than somebody that might have started with cricket development back in England or Australia or in India X number of 100 years ago. So it's I think in a way probably even more exciting in that regard, that you've been able to be involved in something that didn't exist.
Yeah, absolutely. Be a part of something. Watch it grow in front of your eyes, and be proud of what you've achieved. You should be proud. And I think that's what many people don't realize about associate cricket, is that a lot of the people like yourself behind the scenes are people that are juggling jobs and other things in life, and you don't get paid, and you do it because you're passionate and you love it. And that's what these people I've interviewed in the series on the podcast have said. We just do it because we love it. We want what's best for the game to prosper and grow in the country, and allow the people in those countries to join in on the cricket family and join in on the fun. And I think that's what makes associate cricket so good, is that it's sort of that old school sort of era with cricket, isn't it? Sort of amateurish mixed in with trying to become professional and balancing all different things. I think it keeps you humble and keeps you grounded, I think.
It certainly does. I think our role as associate member, national governing bodies, as to use the official state of what we are, then we're trying to create something to become a mainstream sport in a country where, like ours, where it didn't exist only a few decades ago. So I think in that respect, it's it does keep you honest, but it also you're continuously trying to improve at what you do, and professionalism, as you quite rightly stated, is something which for all of us in associate countries is something which we aspire to and look at in terms of local governance, in terms of local responsibility for the development of the game in a properly governed and equality based, transparent manner to enable people to feel comfortable in an environment where they can play the greatest sport in the world, which of course we would obviously be of that opinion, but we have to sell that opinion to people that don't know anything about it. So it's a very different story than you would have to speak to somebody in an established country who knows what you do with a cricket bat and ball, when you've got somebody that wouldn't know which end of the bat to hold if you didn't tell them.
Yeah.
And invariably say, well, why would I play a game that lasts 5 days and ends in a draw? And those sorts of things are what we have from hundreds and hundreds of years of history, that we have to sort of say, well, you know what? In actual fact, we can play this game absolutely anywhere at any time with just a small group of kids and have lots of fun. And who cares about rules and regulations and everything in between, all the way to developing international cricketers of the future and looking at how we can set a platform for kids of today, Finnish kids of today, to be playing in future Olympics or future World Cup finals or massive IPL type franchise leagues. Those sorts of the things which we obviously didn't exist anywhere in the world. Those types of things, but something which now is creating opportunity for people to thrive from all sorts of maybe not so common or commonly noted cricket countries. So we'd like to think that that's certainly something that we want to do for the future of the game here in Finland as well.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. It's all about just, being involved, having fun and, giving it your best shot and see what you can do. We definitely can change people's lives, cricket. I've heard people from many of the associate countries I've interviewed have said it does change people's lives in terms of, giving them that sense of purpose and feel of belonging as well, and being a part of something which the game of cricket can offer, and no doubt it's happening in Finland as well. So thank you, Andrew, for sharing your memories and insights on how you got involved in the game. I always find it quite interesting listening to people's earliest memories of cricket. Everyone's different, but I think we all have one common theme. That's what many cricket fans share alike, is that we all love the game dearly and we care about it. We're passionate, and people like yourself working in associate cricket behind the scenes wanted to grow and develop in all parts of the world, and not just in Finland, but all parts of the associate world.
Absolutely.
And that's why we love this game. So thank you for sharing that with us, Andrew.
Not at all.
Much appreciated. Andrew, I thought to start this interview on Finland cricket, let's talk about the history of cricket in Finland. You can learn a lot about cricket from its history, and the history of cricket in Finland is quite interesting. So, Andrew, give us a brief overview on the history of cricket in Finland, a brief history lesson for our listeners and watchers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I sort of briefly mentioned earlier, little bits and pieces of cricket have taken place since the 52 Olympics, around about that time. But up until fast forward to 1999, when the Finnish Cricket Association was formed, that was formed at the time with 4 cricket clubs. So that was basically 4 cricket clubs that existed in the country, and that was it. No idea at that time about future junior programs, women's cricket, World Cup pathways, and anything like that. It was a very simple, small organization with 4 clubs that wanted to develop the game on and move on from there. And you fast forward 25 years to now to today, and I think currently the association has 38 or 39 clubs, national team, as well as junior activities popping up in all sorts of places all across the country. And we have a full summer league schedule this year, which will be the largest summer schedule that we've ever delivered. We've continued to keep growing year on year. We'll have in the T20 format is the main format for a cricket country as young as the Finnish Cricket Association's 25-year history. So we have a premier tournament of 8 teams, and then we'll have a first division, a second division, both of 8 teams, and then our third division is split up into 2 sets of 9. So what's that? 16, 24, 30, 40, 42 teams playing that, and then we have a little bit of T10 cricket and some 40 over cricket interspersed with a women's league as well. That'll be played 10 over format. And I think, you asked me to cover the history. I think the history to come to this point has basically been a continuum of growth and development and sort of realization of the things that are fundamentally possible. I mean, 25 years is a relative short period of time. 25 years ago, we weren't talking about T20 cricket, IPL type franchise cricket, never mind T20 World Cup pathways for countries like ourselves to be involved in it. And like anything else, like any other sport, you have to be relevant, you have to be inspiring, and you have to incentivize people to get involved. Why would they otherwise get involved? If you're a non-cricket country like ours, then if the majority of the population don't have an idea of what cricket is, never mind how they could play it, then it's never going to go anywhere, is it? So our key goal at the moment is moving on from that foundation that's been set in the 25 years to come to this point, and looking at what the next 25 will look like. Obviously, the Olympic movement is something which has added to the interest value of that as well, most recently. I think that's something else which Finland, like many other European countries, like many other countries across the world that are not necessarily cricket countries, then the Olympics is the highest of high. So it's no different here. And I think it's a massive opportunity for us to continue to develop the game and offer more opportunities for the kids of today to be playing in the Olympics of the future. So I think, historically speaking, when I would have been playing cricket in the first few years, and we didn't have any cricket grounds, so we ended up just we played on gravel. You imagine gravel cricket grounds. So I'll just repeat that. Yes, gravel. I didn't say grass. I said gravel. So you'd have a roll down coconut mat, which we had to flatten the area, brush off the gravel, nail down the mat. You imagine doing that, all of those sorts of things where you'd say, well, how can I get kids involved playing cricket then if somebody has to go to a ground and brush away loads of gravel and then nail down a mat before you even get started? So I mean, that was what we had. There wasn't anything else. So we don't have anything else. That was something which you couldn't take for granted. We struggled to even get those types of grounds, as the municipalities that are responsible for the sports ground had no clue what we were asking for. So from those times now to think that this summer we will officially play grounds in the city called Lahti, league matches in Lahti, which is our latest grass facility. So we'll have 3 grass grounds that meet international criteria for playing T20 internationals in the space of 25 years. Quite a massive achievement, considering that most of the development that's happened around those grounds has been through municipal assistance, a little bit of government funding, and then a lot of work and sweat and our own money that's gone into getting to that point. And obviously they're never enough. The more that you grow the program, the more that you need more infrastructure, and that's obviously something which in a country like Finland, A, it's not easy, as it's not cheap, and B, you need to continue to be able to show that the program is growing. You've got more juniors, more women playing the game, so that we've got more interest to cooperate with more municipalities across the country for us to get better facilities to be playing better cricket. That obviously applies also to the winter months, as I think I mentioned earlier in the discussion, that we've got snow still here at the moment, which I must admit is not necessarily normal for the southern part of Finland here near Helsinki. So we're hoping to kick off our season in literally around about 3 weeks' time, early May. And you can't see the grass currently as it's covered in this white stuff. But that means also then that the indoor season is vastly important. And we've managed to develop some indoor facilities as well during that period of time. We have the best facility in the country is at a sports academy called Erikkilä, which I said with my Finnish accent intentionally. It's about 100 kilometers equidistant from three of the major city areas in Finland, from Tampere and Turku, and then the greater Helsinki area around the bottom. So we have a 3-bay net facility that the national team and club sides use then throughout the winter, which has been built into an existing football dome. So just about warm enough. Gets down to minus 20, 25 degrees C in the winter, so it's not exactly conducive to playing cricket. So it's a heated hall, and located in the midst of a national academy that runs the football program as well as a floorball, which is probably something that your listeners have got no idea what it means, but it's another massively popular sport in Finland and across the Nordics in particular. So we sort of intersperse with other much larger Finnish sports here in Finland, and that obviously gives us an opportunity to network and give more visibility to the game of cricket, where people would think they're going to a football hall and they actually see somebody hitting a cricket ball around. So we have developed that side of things as well. But obviously that's as 6 or 7 months of the year is cold and snowy, then depending on which part of Finland you're from. If you go further up north, then it's even worse. But so indoor facilities are a massive of massive importance to Cricket Finland, both up to now and in the future. But as we grow the game, then that's something else that we get more and more opportunities to look at and to develop further.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it can be tough in the winter, can it? In these Nordic European countries like Estonia, Denmark, Norway, Finland, even Sweden. You have to deal with these harsh winters and try to navigate that challenge. I can't imagine cricket in the snow, that's for sure.
No, not really. Not exactly high on my wish list, to be honest. But at the same time, it just means that you need to be creative as well, and that means that certainly in Finland, there's school halls and sports halls all over the place that are built for purpose to withstand the winter, and that means playing indoor. Plastic bats and tennis balls and stuff like that is something which, as there's lots of mini sports halls that can be used for that purpose, then that's something that it's from a long-term development perspective, something that we do have obviously lots of opportunities to utilize. But that means we need to get more kids involved, more players involved, as coaches and school teachers and sports teachers involved to do the basics of cricket coaching to be able to kick off and start the interest in the game with kids.
Yeah, definitely. And thank you, Andrew, for sharing a brief history lesson on the cricket in Finland. Of course, I know everyone's keen to learn more and wanting to research more after listening to a brief history lesson there on the history of cricket in Finland. And
a very brief one.
I've learned a lot as well just listening to you there. So that's the thing about the game of cricket. You can always learn something new every day, can you? You never stop learning in this game. So definitely a lot of people would have learned loads about cricket in Finland just listening to you speak about the origins of it and how it came to be and how it's grown to what it is today. So thank you for sharing that with us, Andrew. Andrew, let's talk about the Finland national cricket teams, women's and men's. It'd be good to gain your insights on the two teams and learn more about their achievements, the players' stories, because many of the players come from diverse backgrounds. So, Andrew, for those who may not know a lot about the Finland women's and men's teams, can you tell us more about them, the players, and some of their stories?
Yeah, absolutely. As I mentioned, in the short 25-year history of the Finnish Cricket Association, I guess Cricket Finland obviously never had a national side in the first few years of its existence. I was fortunate enough to skipper the first ever Finnish cricket side that represented Finland in a European event back in 2000. And all these years later, then fortunately we have a much better structure in place for the men's. We have also a junior players pathway program that we've been developing with the team over the last 18 months or so to actually give more opportunities for kids to get involved in having more structured practice and more coaching and obviously looking at how they can progress to become future Finnish national cricketers, and kids in this case means boys and girls, obviously, as we have both. But I think the Finnish men's national side is obviously the one that is the most prominent at the moment. We have in August of this summer, we'll be playing in the ICC 2020 World Cup regional qualifiers. There'll be 3 events this summer in Europe. First in Italy, then in Germany, and then the third one where Finland will be playing will be in Guernsey in August. So we have an incentive for our squad to continue as they have been doing, training hard through the winter in the facilities that I mentioned earlier, and hopefully starting with outdoor cricket in a few weeks' time. So we have every 2 years, and that's a critical thing, that every 2 years in our cycle we know that we'll have another regional pathway event towards the 2020 World Cup finals, and that's obviously our main target for this summer. We have a developing squad, very much so, in terms of, as you mentioned, players of different backgrounds, players of within the squad, anything from players that have been born in Finland or players that have migrated here through a little bit like myself through work and have family here, or refugees, and everything in between. So it's very much a mixed setup, which I think it does reflect the Finnish cricket community as well, as to the status of something which has just a 25-year history of having started from nothing. Then often people ask the question as to, are you developing the local Finnish players? And obviously that's something which is also happening, but at the same time, it's such a relatively short period of time to develop those players. So I think our junior pathway programs that we've got going on at the moment is looking to do exactly that. The next generation of kids that have come through cricket families, or alternatively kids that have started playing school cricket and the like, and are able to see a little bit more of a visible pathway that we can offer. The Olympics obviously being another critical addition to that program, so that now that cricket is formally confirmed on the 28 Los Angeles Olympic program, then that means we are far more visible in terms of cricket as a sport in Finland, and aiming towards becoming a mainstream one, obviously, in the future. That's pretty much what we're looking for now. What else could I say about that? Our women's is we've I guess you look at women's cricket moving along so rapidly and most welcomely so to the global cricket community, and we're no different here in terms of Finnish cricket is also trying to do what we can to develop the women's game. So we have, as I mentioned earlier, we'll have women's league. It's this summer within our program, and then we're looking at the moment to develop our women's pathway to an international status, which again is a smaller scale operation than it is for the men's, but at the same time, you sort of, I guess, what we've learned through development program for the men's national side over the last 25 years, we're sort of trying to implement those learnings into developing the national side for the women. And we hosted a women's T20 event for the other Nordic countries here last summer, last August, which is a hugely successful event, enjoyed by everybody. Played at 2 of those 3 international standard grass cricket grounds that I mentioned earlier, and so that's something that is obviously a feather in our cap, and something that we want to continue to build on. I guess I shouldn't then not mention at the same time that we hosted the ICC T20 European qualifiers in 2022. So the ones that we'll be playing again now in Guernsey in 24. I think we were the first ever European country to host 2 regional qualifiers back to back. So we had 20 countries that visited Finland. The first time that it was hosted after COVID, of course, the pandemic was finally over, or almost over by then, and we had 20 countries that played the T20 World Cup regional qualifiers here in Finland for the first time. So that was also a massive event for us, tiring in terms of the small organization that ran it, but I think we did ICC recognizes with a sort of a gold standard performance for this level of a cricket nation to develop as we had, and we live streamed all of the matches against something else, which gave far more visibility to what's happening in Finland, and to a global audience as well. That was something that had not been done too many times before on ICC TV, as is, which has continued to develop since then. So yeah, I guess again, I'm probably rambling on a little bit, not answering all your question as you hoped for, but I think that's gives you a decent enough sort of feel for where we're currently at with our national sides, and that continues to grow. We've had another excellent winter, I'd say. We've got more passionate volunteer professionals, because that's what they are. We've had inclusion this winter to the coaching setup of also a sports psychologist and a data analyst. So there's all of the things that in established countries you'll have people on the payroll doing all of this sort of stuff. We are sort of we're succeeding in giving inspiration to all different types of people from all different types of professional backgrounds to be involved in helping us with the dream of qualifying for a World Cup final or a future Olympics. Those are the sort of things which we as an organization are here to build with limited resources, admittedly, but that just means we have to I think in many ways perform better than established countries, because it's very different to get people interested in doing something without being paid for it than it is going out there to the market and recruiting from a wide professional base of people. So again, that's something which as ever with these types of things, you've never done some of these things before, so you sort of learn as you go along and try to develop as professional environment as you possibly can to be able to hone the end result, which as we all know, especially in T20, can be based on one shot or one catch or one delivery, which can be the definition of whether you progress in a tournament or not. So looking at those 1%ers with a passionate bunch of volunteers trying to support all of the players, I think it in its own way it creates a humble and rewarding environment for people want to be involved in, because it's sort of I guess it goes back to something of a real sort of basic nature of respect for each other and respect for your team and respect for everybody that's either on the field or off the field, because without all of that, then it wouldn't happen. So I think that's something which we'd also like in the future to think that the development funding, whether that be through ICC funding, whether that be through local government funding or through Olympic funding, then those are sorts of things which we're building platforms for to be a credible sport in the future that would be of an interest to funders and sponsors and so on and so forth, to create something which has not been done before.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Just wanting both sets of players, both female and male, to be good people at the end of the day. Just be good role models for young kids in Finland looking to aspire to be a part of the setup when they're older and wanting to be involved in this game, which is the important thing. And I couldn't agree more there. And in terms of different cultures and different backgrounds of people, trying to get that cohesion within the team, which is often the case in associate cricket. You have many different people from different nationalities and countries that speak different languages, different cultures.
Yep.
What are you trying to do in terms of making that cohesion and that bond with the team, making sure that's unified in terms of people speak Finnish or a particular language? Or so how are you going about making sure that both teams have that cohesion with all these different nationalities?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's an excellent question, because it's something which you can never sort of set aside as to the importance of it. And as we all know, that have played in good and bad teams over the years in different sports, that cohesion, if it's missing, you're already you've almost lost before you cross the boundary rope. So I think we have a mix of players within our structures, some of which, and an increasing number of which, do speak Finnish, but not everybody does. So that means something. We have to create an environment where everybody is comfortable with a language that they all understand. So that invariably means for us that it's English based, but at the same time we do have a lot of other languages which we use as is necessary within the squad. If somebody doesn't have a good enough grasp of English as well, for example, then we'd have somebody within the team, within the management structure, within the senior players group who would then converse with them in whichever language they're able to fully understand, and that that's obviously then another task which you add to the long list in addition to your coaching of technique as well as development of the team and the team environment. And I think that that certainly applies to both the men's and the women's as well as the juniors. I think until you get to the point that cricket in Finland becomes a mainstream sport, then the likes of ice hockey or football, basketball, the bigger sports in this country, it's not necessarily an issue as everybody would speak Finnish, but I mean even then that's not necessarily 100% true as well. There's lots of players that would play international sport for some of the major sports, and they perhaps have played a lot of their sport outside of Finland as well. But I think that just it adds an extra. It's an extra challenge, but it's also an extra opportunity, I guess, to say that way, because if you do it well, then it does mean, I think, that the cohesion was, I think, the word that you used. You have the opportunity to create an even stronger, cohesive group of people doing something which is as it stands, something that's never been done before to the level of what we're currently aiming for. Obviously, the future of the Olympics is there as an addition that we don't fully know about yet, but at the same time, it is adding to the palette of opportunities that we can provide, and obviously that's to a point something that we must do for us to survive as a sport as well, because we need to be able to be relevant to people who want to get started in the game, as well as people who just want to play recreationally, but as well as those that wish to look for a future career. Why not? I mean, who's to say that there wouldn't be more and more associate-based cricket players in the future who would be playing in franchise tournaments and making a living from the game, just as from more established countries. Obviously, it's not something that's happening right now, but I think fundamentally, it's one of the reasons why we certainly need to be putting those building blocks in place for the future, and that we are. And I think just to add an additional point to that is recently we received some great news from the Finnish Olympic Committee that we are going to receive a little bit of funding, which has never happened before in Finnish cricket history for the development of our high performance program. So that's literally fresh news, just a day or so old. I guess that sort of elaborates on what I was mentioning earlier, as to we think that we've been doing the right thing, and that's good to then sort of get that recognition from the highest governing body for sports in Finland, from the Finnish Olympic Committee and their high performance team, to say, well, yeah, we start to realize now the potential that exists for future Finnish cricket players, and that we've been doing the right things for a period of time, and get some assistance for us to take those next steps in our sort of goal towards ultimately professionalism and creating more and more opportunities through our national sides for men and women.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's good to hear that you are addressing that challenge of cohesion and, different cultures and trying to integrate everyone as one.
Yeah.
Which I suppose is the case for many associate nations, and just trying to get that, cohesion across all players, and wanting to play under one flag. And that's in the case of Finland.
And that is, I think that's perhaps something which, I mean, I don't know whether I stressed that well enough, but I think it's something which is a massive challenge as well, because by definition, lots of associate countries have a relatively short history, and invariably have been created or been built on migrant players that have come from elsewhere, and sort of integrating into your local society is not necessarily something. Well, it isn't necessarily something that happens overnight, and something which is massively important in terms of this current day and age of how we manage our development program, and how we are open to everybody to get involved in the sport, and everybody to feel comfortable and safe in an environment, in a fun environment, in a sport that, you know, only not much more than a decade or so ago they didn't really know existed. And you know, getting parents to understand the opportunities, getting parents to get involved in cricket, which for, again, somebody from an established cricket country would be normal, but which, if it's never happened before here and in many other associate countries, that's something else which, you know, is a challenge for us to create that welcoming environment so everybody feels comfortable about getting involved in our wonderful sport, which by definition then has to be open to everybody, and be able to create the right environment for people from all sorts of backgrounds.
Absolutely. You know, we have to be inclusive and not exclude people, and make them feel welcome and be a part of this game of cricket. So that's what all associate nations are trying to do, and just welcome with open arms, really, and just say, hey, you know, you can be a part of the team, and you can be a part of the family, and we'll welcome you with open arms, and we won't treat you differently. We'll treat you with respect and courtesy. And I think that's what you should do across the board anyway. So it's good that associate nations are addressing that challenge head on. In terms of the national teams for the men's team with the rankings now, as everyone will know, the associate cricket rankings are quite difficult to understand and calculate from, which is a bit difficult, but it does dictate how much funding you will get and receive, placing or where you finished in the rankings in a certain time frame. So for the men's team, where are they currently ranked at the moment?
Well, I was going to elaborate a little bit on that as one of the numerous hats that I have. I'm also a global associate representative with the ICC, so that means that I get involved in perhaps a little bit more than the regular associate country might expect, at least somebody from Finland anyway. So yeah, the rankings for T20 have been used for defining a part of the funding stream for the first time in 2024, and what that meant, as we're talking about Finland now, is that at the end of October, I think it was the cutoff at October 31st, 2023. Then the rankings at the time, available on the ICC website, where Finland was ranked number 48. That defined a category for Finland's men, and had an allocation of funding then applied to it, which again was the first time. So I think we go down to 92. I think the current T20 rankings include. Obviously, if a country doesn't play enough ICC T20 Is, then they would fall off the ranking. So it's run in a 4-year cycle. So yeah, and obviously as Cricket Finland, so our aim is to continue up that ranking ladder, to ideally aim for a number that begins with a 3 instead of a 4 next up, and that's obviously something which, you know, as you said, lots of people I don't understand. I think that's probably a fair enough statement, as it's when you start looking at something which is global, and you have its associate countries who don't have the visibility of established countries and TV broadcasts of T20 international series and the like, which all then impact on those rankings, whether you're from Australia, England, India, or from Finland. So obviously we have less opportunity to play T20 internationals, which means we have lesser opportunity to impact on those rankings as well. So that's something else which we were discussing actually last week, just over a week ago in Athens, in the first ICC European conference post the pandemic. So we had a 5-year gap since having one of those, and yeah, we were discussing with some of the ICC representatives and other associate countries there about what's the future of T20 bilaterals, and even considering perhaps joining our resources together to have some sort of future program of organized bilaterals, which of course would help as well in terms of getting more visibility to the associate game and more understanding around the T20 global rankings themselves, making them more robust. The more matches that you play, the more robust that ranking becomes. So I think those types of things are also hugely important for a country like ours.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose countries have different situations, and rankings are not the priority. It's just about playing and developing and getting better and trying to go down that route. And then probably further down the track, you would think about probably improving your ranking, so to speak. So
yeah, I think that's a fair enough comment, and I'm not implying at all that would be the only thing that we think about either. But it's just an additional item on the development agenda, I guess. The fact that I should add that that includes the women's as well. So for 2024, the T20I ranking is being used for the first time for both men and women. It's just an additional item that creates opportunity to generate more interest in our wonderful sport. Just it's not the only issue and not the only reason that we do it, but again, another facet to that program. So yeah,
definitely. In terms of under 19 teams for women's and men's, are there any plans for Finland to field any under 19 teams or any teams in the future for under 19 events?
Yeah, certainly future plans are in place. We have started on. We've had obviously women's and junior development cricket going on in the background for a while, and now sort of these pathway opportunities that arise sort of give more incentives for us to be thinking about what our future programs should look like and what we've learned from these 20-something years of trying to develop the men's national side. So absolutely, those the female and junior cricket development programs are probably certainly as important as our men's programs then these days. So that just means that we've got a different sort of level of development in hand at the moment, and for that purpose, just over, I think probably about 12-18 months back, we put together what we call a junior players pathway program. So that basically means that the same time as we're trying to get more of our clubs, our member clubs, to be running women's and junior programs within their clubs. So we're also then looking to put a pathway in place where we can offer a little bit more structured environment, more coaching for potential kids to be the future under 19s of Finland. We don't currently have that, and we're currently aiming at the under 15 bracket as to be the ones that we'd like to think we can start on the international stage. We're currently, I don't think we'll manage it for this summer, but we're currently sort of putting building blocks in place for under 15 international activities in 2025. That's where we're currently at with that. And again, that just sort of gives additional background as to the relatively short history that we've got, and something which we're sort of trying to fast track as much as we can with the resources available to us, to do as much as we can in a short period of time, and obviously try and get more of an encatchment of kids and women involved in the game, to be able to sort of support our pathways to those future goals and get more, obviously through more volume, as cricket is no different to any other sport in Finland. The dropout levels that you have as kids and women fall out of the game. So the more you can get involved, playing more regularly, the better opportunities we have to support those future national sides.
Definitely, absolutely, and that's very promising and encouraging to hear that, Andrew. And also, thank you for sharing your insights on the national teams, women's and men's, and it's good to see them growing and developing. And obviously, got some tournaments and series ahead. Obviously, T20 qualifiers, of course, for the men's, and the women's are about to play some internationals, hopefully, and start on their journey. But I think everyone listening and watching to this episode, and even myself, Andrew, would like to wish you all the best for the national teams, and hopefully both teams have a bit of sisu in them, which is a bit of Finnish courage, which is that term that's used in Finland, bit of courage, and go out there and perform well on the cricket field and do Finland proud, because there's a lot of good things happening there, and definitely both teams are definitely working towards achieving a lot of great goals and hopefully rise through the rankings. And beware of Finland, everyone. They're probably going to make
absolutely.
a big impact.
Absolutely. I think maybe in addition to Sisu, as you mentioned, then that we'd also sort of be we should not leave it unsaid about the happiest country in the world. As Finland was again there this year, and obviously being happy and having fun is all interlinked. So that's definitely something we'd like to think that Finnish cricket of the future is all about having fun and enjoying playing together at all of the different levels, whether that's recreational or international, and aiming for future professional. So I mean that's everything in between.
Absolutely. Yes. Forgot about that. Yes, they are the happiest country on earth, Finland. So
I keep smiling.
Yes, keep smiling and carry on, and definitely put a smile on your face. And that's
certainly.
As you said, it's all about.
Most certainly. So, if this snow melts and the grass starts to grow, then I'll have an even bigger smile. So in the next few weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You want to get out there and play some cricket. But as I was saying, Andrew, we'll be watching with close interest on how both teams develop in not only this year, but in the years to come. And hopefully that growth and development continues for the national teams. And thank you for sharing their insights for us today.
Not at all. It's an absolute pleasure.
Absolute pleasure. Talk about the growth and development of cricket within Finland in terms of getting cricket into local communities, clubs, schools, grassroots, etc. And you've touched on that briefly in our chat as we've progressed. Andrew, you would agree this is one of the challenges that many associate nations have, is how they introduce cricket and promote it. That's easier said than done in a foreign country that's not familiar with cricket compared to a traditional cricket country like Australia, for example. So you must be sitting back in your chair at times, scratching your head and asking these type of questions. Oh, how do we introduce cricket into the community? How do we establish grassroots cricket? Local clubs in local communities, competitions, pathway systems, underage comps, identification for talent, picking players who are suitable to, go to the international level. Having facilities, that's a big one for associate cricket. Nets, turf wickets available for people to go and play in their local areas, and also for the national sides as well. And making cricket accessible to everyone on TV or, social media, getting it out there, the exposure, and getting cricket into schools. And that's one thing that many associate nations are aiming towards, is getting into schools, into their sporting programs, getting young people involved, young boys and girls from a young age, get them interested in the sport. So, Andrew, what challenges does Cricket Finland have in trying to grow and develop cricket in the Finnish community? And do you see cricket becoming a mainstream sport in Finland? Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was busy scratching my head as you said that I must do that quite often. So I thought I'd do it while I was on air on your podcast as well. So though I think you summarized. I was just trying to think of anything that you left out because those are the head scratchers that we constantly are faced with day in day out. 8 days a week, pretty much, and obviously without a massive structure of paid personnel or structure of developed infrastructure or pathways into schools and so on and so forth. So there's all, I guess you have to be quite selective at times. We never want to think that anything is impossible, but at the same time, you have to have a sort of a dose of reality, as to say, what is the best use of the limited number of euro cents that we have, as well as the time that we have available, that we need to be focusing on certain areas of the development plan to cover all of those items that you quite rightly touched on. And I think obviously the creation of infrastructure is one of the larger ticket items, but at the same time, it's also one of the most how should I say, long-term items as well. It's not something which we can impact on today, tomorrow, next week, next month. It's something which is consistently in the forefront of mind, but at the same time, just accepting the reality that it's not something that we can just keep impacting on a continuous and ongoing basis as much as we'd like to, because I think that's also then interacted to the success that we can have in developing the game in other areas, so that we become more a credible partner, if you like, for municipalities, for them to be interested in cooperating more with us, for them to be interested in getting more of their school sports teachers given the basic fundamentals of cricket coaching, which obviously, as we don't have enough coaches through Cricket Finland and its clubs to be able to do that. So that's something which you have to think about in terms of resourcing the future of Finnish cricket, the future kids in schools. And I think that's something which hats off to the global body of International Cricket Council that's realized that over the last few years of I guess the pandemic, as bad as it was, probably made quite a lot of people involved in cricket sort of take a step back and spend some of that time where we were all isolated, thinking about, how the future should look and what things we could do differently. And I think that's been something over the last couple of years that all the associate countries have been rolling out with support from the ICC. It's online digital platforms for developing of coaching and developing of umpiring, even developing of ground curators, which never existed in the past. You in the past, when I did my first coach badges here, then we would use the old English ECB coaching program back in the early 2000s, which was obviously built for an English audience and didn't really fit to what we wanted to do in somewhere like Finland, but there was nothing else. So that was what we had to work with. So now we've actually got those types of resources, as well as the Creo format, which is the plastic bats and balls, and basically the lowest possible sort of threshold that we can make for kids to get involved in playing cricket and be able to roll that out to schools in the most simplest of manners. It's no hard ball, no extra equipment or anything else, just some plastic bats and stumps and tennis balls and having fun. And I think that's something which, at the end of the day, that's the common denominator that is taken as a given in established cricket countries, but in associate countries, that's definitely not the case, and something that we have to sort of think outside the box to make ourselves interesting to the wider population, and then at the same time be able to use the potential of future cricket superstars for us to be able to have an extra sort of added value than maybe some of the other currently larger sports in Finland than cricket, to make ourselves interesting and make ourselves something that people want to be involved in on a more regular basis, whether they are the teachers that I mentioned, getting the basic fundamentals in cricket coaching, or then the kids that are enjoying playing it, who then by definition are asking for more cricket from those same teachers and after school classes and the like, and as much as we can with our small organizations, then that's what we promote that we can do. And again, those things are not something which happen overnight, but those are something which you're building foundations for the first time. So for us to do so, we have to try and make sure that those foundations are as best as they possibly can be to have a long lasting impact on the growth of the game into the future and future Olympics, future World Cup pathways, however, whatever they might be. So I think that's, in a way, I certainly feel as well, having lived in Finland as long as I have, and as a Finnish citizen these days, I sort of look at it from a perspective of somebody that has to consider the environment that we have here in Finnish society and the needs of a growing sport, whatever that sport might be, so that we become more relevant to the Finnish population and try, I guess, to sell the idea that cricket often it has a sort of a packaged view within Finnish society, that it's something that lasts many days and ends in a draw and is quite slow and boring, and everybody drinks a cup of tea in the break, and it's not exactly a sport really, if you think about that. And that's something which a traditional, maybe a Finn would not have seen cricket other than in some, series that's come across from the UK or something, where there's been a little bit of translation or dubbed or whatever else, and a bit of cricket. Whereas we have, for example, just to address the question that you asked earlier of how do we become more visible, then we've been involved through the Finnish Olympic Committee with with numerous other sports in an event that's called the SM-viikko, which is Finnish. So it just basically means a sort of a direct translation would be a Finnish championship week of multi-sport events. And through that event, we have, for example, just recently in March, we got ourselves onto the Finnish national broadcaster, Yle, so the equivalent of an ABC or a BBC in England. And that was playing cage cricket of all things, which was put up in a sports hall that is otherwise used for indoor football. And we put in support from the Jyväskylä city municipality sports department and the Finnish Olympic Committee and the organizing group. We put together a 3-day event, which ended up with the finals being broadcasted live on the TV. And I think our high point of the viewership was somewhere in the region of about 160,000. Which, if you consider that it's just over a 5 million population, it's not a bad number for Sunday afternoon coming out on the TV and getting such a viewership for cricket and people wondering what the hell that is. So it's we did commentary in Finnish with the professional broadcaster, and it was really fast cage cricket as it is as a rapid event. We held a men's and a women's. Historically, the first time as well for that in an indoor event, and it was really well received, and the viewership was high. So it's it's something else that we're looking at now as another city types of events. So that was really a massive amount of work, admittedly. Putting something together and doing and getting to work with a professional broadcaster and those sorts of things for such a small organization as ours, and around about 20 other sports that were all involved in that. So I think that's another sort of example of making ourselves relevant, not just through cricket, but then through being a sport within a multi-sport event, a little bit sort of a mini Olympic type idea, I guess you could probably say. But anyway, we can. That's at the end of the day, we have to sort of think about all different ways to create relevance and create credibility for the sport in a country like Finland, and that's been a massively successful channel to do so.
Yeah, excuse me, absolutely. Yeah, I suppose you have to go through unconventional routes to try and grow and develop cricket in associate nations, and more focus on the shorter form, which is T20 cricket, and making it fast and exciting for people to be attracted to the sport. Also, Andrew, I asked this question to all my guests in this associate cricket series about the ICC. They're not flavor of the month, about many other broader issues within the game. And seeing that you have a close connection with them, obviously being liaising between the associate nations and the ICC itself. Many of the people that I've spoken to, especially from the European countries, have said the regional bodies are quite helpful. ICC Europe, for example, are quite helpful and supportive of countries wanting to help them out and help them tick off certain things with criteria and all this stuff. Just describe your relationship purely from Finland's point of view with the ICC. How's that relationship been between the two parties?
Yeah, I think I mentioned earlier, I've been fortunate enough, had the privilege to be an elected representative, not only for the European associate cricket in general, but also then at a global level. So I perhaps then have had more engagement and involvement with the global governing body at a global level than lots of other colleagues that you might have had on the show. So I guess you mentioned the regional office. I think, especially with a region like Europe, I think we're the largest region of the 5 regions in the ICC with 34 countries, I think it is at the moment. So that's a massive number of countries, and the ICC Europe office is only a small office with just a few members of staff. You're talking here, 3-4 people trying to assist 30-something countries to develop the game. So you can imagine they do as much as they they can, and they do a fantastic job as well, trying to assist with that. But I think looking at it from a global perspective, then that's something which, as the ICC at the end of the day is a members-led organization. So it's not to say that we are commenting about the International Cricket Council as something which isn't directly linked to its members. But obviously, some members have more of a say than others, and I think I would be it would be false of me to say that I don't think that we should be not getting more funding into the development of the game in associate countries, because that's absolutely, it's not the only item on the agenda, of course, but doing all of the things that we've been talking about on this interview for the first time in our countries, then obviously lots of those things do take a lot of time, effort, energies, resources, and those financial resources are obviously an item where just saying it as it is, those financial resources, if they were larger, then it would just mean that we have a better opportunity to move the game along at a rate that we are otherwise limited in doing. And I think that's not just, it's not a direct complaint per se, because obviously, all the sports across the globe, everybody has whatever money they have. But I think what we can talk about is in terms of the allocations within international cricket, certainly. If I would be looking at it with a fresh easel and thinking about what the associate world of cricket then should look like, I'd probably say that we should be looking at putting a lot more funding going down into the associate countries rather than staying up in the established countries where all of those things are existing already. You've already got your infrastructures and your coaching and your player pathways and your school crickets and your training centres and your nets and your cricket grounds and everything else. So one could argue that for us to become truly global and do it faster and do it in our lifetimes, then that needs to be funded more appropriately into the future. Obviously, I'm not saying that we should be just throwing money at everybody. We need to have proper structures in place and proper development plans in place, and incentivized growth plans to be able to fund strong development programs that are being correctly governed and that are being sort of built to be fit for the future, because I think those are the sorts of things that the ICC is looking for as well, and something which we need to have more prominence within the associate world, as there are lots of fantastic programs taking place out there that wouldn't face any harm by having a few more euros or dollars than available to develop those programs.
Yes, absolutely. And the ICC
if that was a balanced enough answer, Jack, I don't know. Cover it from all angles.
It's pretty professional, Andrew. So pretty much what I expected, obviously, from your response. But as I was saying, the ICC are starting to do that with the T20 World Cup growing to 20 teams now for this year.
Absolutely.
The USA and the Caribbean. So the USA is a co-host of the T20 World Cup. And then the next 50-over World Cup in 2027, we see Namibia as an associate nation co-hosting with South Africa and Zimbabwe. It doesn't necessarily mean they will qualify for that event, which is a bit sort of wrong in a way, really. You expect, host nations to be a part of their home tournament. But in the case of how the structure is at the moment, that's probably not the case for Namibia or Zimbabwe. South Africa probably guaranteed to have, being the host nation, will qualify. So there are definitely plenty of challenges and problems to iron out. But definitely.
I think those challenges are definitely there, as you said. But if you turn the clock back just 20 years and think about, we wouldn't have been having these discussions at all. Yeah. So I mean, you sometimes you put things into context and say, well, the pace of development and growth of the game is probably at a faster rate than it's ever been, and future events, quite clearly. Whether those are global events or whether those are regional events, then the more capacity building that we do and the more credible sort of partners we can create in associate countries to be able to deliver on these types of events, as Finland hosting those 2022 T20 World Cup regional qualifiers after the pandemic. That's the sort of thing which we would never have dreamed of just a few years back. But at the same time, it's just a reflection of what is possible with a crazy passionate bunch of people that want to do things on a better level and want to become more professional the way we do it, and work with local municipalities and governments and so on and so forth to be able to give the cricket the environment that it deserves in other countries than just a handful. And I think that's something which is a reflection of the way that the game is going at the moment. And
yeah, absolutely, definitely. And also in Europe, the game is growing and developing quite nicely. And I had this conversation when I interviewed Rohan Ravichandran from Belgium Cricket on the podcast recently. He talked about Europe having its own governing body like it does in Asia, for example, and then you have your own championship, which is not the case in Europe. They used to have a governing body, and then they got disbanded and never really resurfaced. What are your thoughts on that? Is that beneficial for Europe? Something you could consider as a
absolutely. Absolutely. I think I mentioned earlier the European conference that we had in Athens just over a week ago, and that was one of the items on the agenda that we were discussing, and have had sort of provisional discussions about it in the past. But I think what's never happened before was there was a unanimity in the room of all the countries present, and that was definitely felt to be something that we should be progressing. And on that basis, I think having seen the both historically speaking, I think you mentioned a governing body. I think the European Cricket Council back then was really a governing body per se. It was more like a sort of a workshop environment, which was looking at the possibilities to develop the game in the future. But I think that was it clashed with the times of what the ICC Europe office was then created at the time for the first time, and what then was the ICC Europe office function, which has obviously changed in the last 20 years as well. And compared to what the current day is, and obviously the Asian Cricket Council is probably the blueprint for the regional organizations to think about how we should be structuring our cricket in the future, and having a regional governing body obviously opens up a little bit more, a lot more work obviously, but a lot more opportunity to be functioning as a more sort of joined up body of countries than perhaps in the past, and becoming a more of an interesting counterparty for sponsors and governments and the like, and looking at what sort of additional tournament structures we can put together across Europe in the way that many other of the sports do. And we spoke in Athens also with the local Olympic committee representatives, as well as the European Olympic organization during that conference, and talked about what the future is for having the European Games, for example. And cricket being involved, something like that. I think that's definitely something which doesn't exist at the moment, and which in my opinion, that certainly should in the future. And the European Games are organized every 4 years, just the same as the Olympics, a year before the Olympics. So in 2027, the next ones will be in Istanbul. And we had a little bit of a discussion as to saying, what can we do to support to get cricket on the program with the European Olympic Organization sports director, Peter Bruel, his name, and he's actually based in Finland as well, strangely enough. So that was an interesting discussion. I spoke to Peter during the conference in Finnish while he was presenting, obviously in English to everybody else. So it's it's sometimes a small world, which we don't realize that by growing the network of cricket across Europe, then those types of things perhaps become more reality into the not too distant future. Certainly, a definite big yes from my side is your question.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's hope it comes into reality. It can only benefit both parties, I suppose. And they do it well in Asia, and also the Asia Cup and the Asian Games as well. Yeah, so it can only benefit Europe, that's for sure.
So why would we not have a European Cup and European Games? I mean, I think it's a model which has been proved to be something that's worked very well in Asia. I don't think that's any different per se to what it could be in Europe. That's definitely the way that I feel about it. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's hope it's discussed more and more into the future. But also thank you, Andrew, for sharing about the growth and development of the game of cricket in Finland. It sounds really optimistic and promising, which you have to be, but you have to take it in small steps, and the growth will happen naturally. So long may that continue, and let's hope many more young boys and girls and people from Finland take up the sport and get involved in this great game, which is
absolutely
a fantastic game to be a part of. So thank you for sharing that with us, Andrew.
Not at all.
Andrew, well, we finally reached the last topic of our long discussion. It's like batting for 6 hours in a test match. It's the last session, last ball, and it's about to be stumps. So we finally reached our last topic of this long discussion, which I've enjoyed immensely. And I thought to end our chat today, Andrew, I thought we'd talk about what the future holds for cricket in Finland. It's very hard to predict the future, as we know. It's very uncertain. But I thought it would be nice to look into the crystal ball and predict what may happen in the future. So, Andrew, how do you see Finland cricket and associate cricket going into the future? Your thoughts on that to end our discussion today?
I think it's a good question to finish on, and obviously something which we continuously both scratching our heads and as well as putting those future building blocks in place. That the Olympic movement I mentioned earlier. I think the fact that we just recently received some funding from the first time ever from the Finnish Olympic Committee to what that future looks like. So it's the very same question that we were trying to answer to the Finnish Olympic Committee high performance program, and that's it's a good place to be in, because I think we are constantly showing that that Finnish cricket as well as associate cricket in many other associate countries are becoming more and more credible partners to work with, and for us to be able to be promoting those future pathways for boys and girls of the future in Finland and other associate countries. I think this is the most critical area of the work that we do, making that future story sort of more and more believable by achieving obviously short-term results to show that we're moving along the pathway in a good manner, but also then being able to reflect of what that true potential really is out there, and whether that's for a country like Finland, like many other associate countries. The Olympic movement is a massively important program with many sports in the country, and for us, the ice hockey's been in the Olympics, football's been in the Olympics, all of the big sports and athletics and so on and so forth. I guess probably one of the only bigger sports that lots of people relate with Finland is Formula One and rally. So those are not in the Olympics, of course. So we'll take those as the exceptions. But for team sports, then obviously like cricket, then that's something which the Olympic movement does offer huge potential. And I think as it's such a new addition to the palette of cricket opportunities, we don't really sort of see the full potential yet. It's something which we are working at and thinking about what it looks like, and a little bit of funding that we got from the Finnish Olympic Committee is aimed towards building that more credible pathway for the future, and more Finnish kids to be involved in the game, and obviously that sort of augments well with what we've currently got of T20 World Cup pathways for men and women, and having programs which are fundamentally believable, credible, interested for the future players in Finnish cricket to be involved in, and incentivizing them to be involved in more. And who's to say that the future players from Finland would not be good enough in the future to be hired as part of major franchise events and those types of things. I think Finnish, to use an example, Finnish ice hockey is obviously one of the major sports in the country, and having players then contracted to the NHL is something which all Finnish kids, a majority of Finnish kids dream about achieving, and I don't see any reason why cricket in the future couldn't have such a potential in Finnish society and as a sport within Finland. And if I didn't say that, I shouldn't be sitting in this position. And I truly believe that becoming mainstream is something which that's basically what drives our day-to-day work, both on and off the field. All the work that we do with our volunteer staff is all about creating opportunity and creating the passion and the interest and the enthusiasm from everybody, from knee high to well, even oldies like me still wanting to be involved in some way, shape, or form, contributing to growing the game. And that's I couldn't sort of see anything else than saying yes, absolutely, mainstream in Finland as well as in other associate countries, and we've never been in a better place to have more opportunities to do so and to support us in that. Obviously, a little bit more funding wouldn't go amiss to help us achieve that dream a little bit sooner, but at the same time, those opportunities exist now, which didn't exist just even a few years ago. So massive potential.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Andrew, for sharing those crystal ball predictions, and hopefully those predictions come true in the future or become reality. And as you rightly said, you wouldn't be sitting here if you didn't believe or weren't optimistic about the future. So you have to be in associate cricket. You just have to have that faith and belief that we can achieve certain goals that we set out to achieve. So thank you for sharing that with us, Andrew. Much appreciated.
Pleasure.
Andrew, thank you for joining me today for this Associate Cricket Series episode to discuss all things Finland cricket. I've enjoyed it immensely and learned so much. I'm sure you have as well, and everyone listening and watching has as well. Andrew, if people want to get in touch with you in terms of Cricket Finland, or want to get in touch with some inquiries that they would like to make, where can people do that?
We have a full coverage of social media channels. Our website, www.cricketfinland.com, is one source. We do have a very active YouTube channel as well. So youtube.com/cricketfinland. We will be streaming lots of matches live this summer, both our Finnish Premier League matches predominantly, as well as international matches. We'll be hosting Norway and Denmark here in June. Those matches will be streamed live as well on our channels. And then we also have, of course, Facebook page for Cricket Finland as well. We have an Instagram account. We have a Twitter account. Profile for Cricket Finland. Again, if you go onto Facebook and just click Cricket Finland, you'll find us on there. So yeah, all sorts of channels and availability and access to what we're doing. And as I say, as the sun has started to shine this afternoon, so the snow will melt away. So a fantastic place to visit from the middle of May to September. Come and see what's going on and get involved.
Definitely, absolutely. It's definitely worthwhile, that's for sure. Finland's such a nice country. Haven't been there myself, but maybe one day, maybe go.
Add to your bucket list, huh? Hopefully, my discussion hasn't put you off at all. So,
no, yeah. But excuse me, my voice is going. Geez, that the indication that we've spoken for a long time. My voice is breaking. Excuse me, everyone. Just do it. If you want to go and play a game of cricket over there or experience the culture of Finland, new country, then definitely go ahead. So, and do that for any aspiring cricketers or anyone who just wants to go for a cricket tour. It's definitely worth it. And it certainly is in these associate countries as well, isn't it? You experience something new and different, quite unusual from time to time as well.
Absolutely. Which I guess is also, of course, a special interest of its own, isn't it? You looking up things, and whether you go onto our website or onto our Cricket Finland Facebook page or so on and so forth. Then there's all sorts of things. Always interested to hear comments and answer questions for things about what we're doing here and how you can get involved if you happen to be in this part of the world or just passing through.
Yeah, definitely. And we will leave links to those in the description of this episode for people to check out if they want to make some inquiries to either Andrew or Cricket Finland. We'll definitely do that. Before we go, remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, and click the bell to make sure you get the latest episodes of the podcast. Be sure to like and share our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. Most of the podcast is available on Anchor, Spotify, and on Apple Podcasts. Once again, thank you, Andrew, for joining me today to discuss all things Finland cricket. I hope all of you watching or listening to this Associate Cricket Series episode learnt a lot about cricket in Finland from Andrew. Until next time, keep safe and bye for now.